Welcome to the Rise and Grind workshop. If you're new here, my name is Ryan. This right here is our ZZ2C. This is a UV flatbed printer from Jay's Printer Parts. And today I'm going to walk you through the entire process of how we convert this thing from having hard inks over to soft inks. Whether you just recently picked up a UV printer or you just started your journey doing your research, I want to cover a couple topics really quick before we dive into this conversion. I mentioned something you really need to pay attention to. When you purchase your UV printer, you have the choice of soft ink or you have the choice of hard ink. I get that question all the time. What's the difference between soft and hard inks? Well, here at the Rise and Grind workshop, I like to work with a wide variety of materials. So for instance, if you plan on doing real estate signs, flags, or anything on wood or a hard surface like this, it's pretty self-explanatory. You would want to load this machine up with your hard inks. Another extremely popular item on the market would be something like this Lonestar Leatherette. As you can tell, this material is extremely malleable, unlike this wooden sign blank. If you were to go ahead and direct print that hard ink on something soft like this, that would immediately bend. You guessed it, that hard ink is going to crack. When they formulate soft inks, they have to put in an additive that's going to allow some flex. There's obviously going to be a little bit of a compromise anytime you add some other additive to your inks. The main difference between your soft and hard inks at the end of the day, they're both going to print fantastic and vibrant, but at the end of the day, if you were to print the same soft and hard inks on the same substrate and put them side by side, the hard inks always will be a little bit more vibrant. So go ahead and take that into consideration when, first of all, researching what UV flatbed printer you would like. The Jay's Printer's ZZ2C does allow you to switch between soft, hard, and bonus. We're also going to have a ink well set up with some fluorescent inks, and that's also going to be on the quick change system as well. Some of your more expensive units that cost $40,000 and above, believe it or not, you cannot even change those between soft and hard inks. So just be very sure that the type of machine you're looking to source can handle both soft or hard inks in case you need that option. So now that you not only know there's a difference between the soft and hard inks, you know exactly what type of applications you're going to need for those type of inks. Now let's talk about how you switch this system over effortlessly. On this particular model, we have two side covers located on both sides. You're going to go ahead and take that key and insert it right into the keyway and give that a quarter turn. We're going to move over to the other side and finish that process. Again, simply rinse and repeat on the remaining side, and that side cover will lift off just like the first one. Now that we're positioned on the back side of this ZZ2C, you can see right here, this is where the ink jugs or containers are. On this side right here, you have your gloss, you have your white, you have your black, you have your magenta, you have your cyan, and then you have your yellow. Right now, if I wanted to service or take these containers out, this cover is going to be in the way. The first step was to remove those side covers. We can now access the sides. There are two Phillips screws. I'm going to show you where those are, and we're going to remove this lid. In order to remove that lid, I want you to pay attention to the network cable right here. On my unit, I need to make sure this is removed prior to taking this cover off. Now that we have both sides removed, we need to access those two Phillips screws, which are going to be right here where my fingers are at. There is a seam right here where this lid opens up. That is where those two Phillips screws are. You're going to loosen those up, and this is basically like a shell or a skin on the frame. Once we get these two removed, I'm going to show you how to remove this. Once you have those loose, you can see this is already going to have some play in it. So again, you have a total of two screws on each side. Make sure you completely remove those screws. You're going to need to slide the unit forward and lift it up slightly. Once you do that, that's going to allow you to swing the back end of this unit up, and that's now going to expose these cans or jugs and give you access to these feed lines. So now that we have access to the back side of the unit, we're at the point of no return, and we're going to start diving into this project. The team over at Jay's Printer Parts went out and sent us one of their conversion kits. I'm going to have a link to that down below in the description. There's a couple different options you can configure depending on the make and the model and what you're trying to accomplish with your machine. When purchasing your UV printer, if you find something like the ZZ2C, which can handle both soft and hard inks, I would highly recommend you pick up both sets as you get more comfortable with UV printing. You're not going to limit yourself, and trust me, there's going to be a job or a project that comes through, and you're going to wish you were able to convert those inks over really quick and simple. So by now, you probably have a rough idea of what is going to happen right here. Our containers are filled with hard ink right now, and this is the main feed line. So once this machine calls up for yellow, it's going to draw the yellow out of this jug and bring that all the way up into the print heads. Now, if I wanted to convert this over to soft inks, The old school way would have been to take out this feed line, take this container, fill this up with soft inks, and then drop that container back inside of here and take that line, put it in there, and then feed the lines in. And then now you've got an extra container full of ink. Some people would cap those off and keep them on storage. Some people would pour them back into their bottles. Today, we're going to eliminate all of that mess, and I'm going to show you how you can keep your spare jugs or storage containers mounted underneath of your UV flatbed printer. And as a bonus, they sent us enough jugs as well as some extra fluorescent ink. We're going to have a triple stack. We're going to show you how you can convert from hard ink to soft ink and all the way down to black light fluorescent ink using the J's Quick Conversion Kit. We're going to dive right into this and show you exactly how to plumb and get everything all set up. And moving right along, the ink that we use at our UV printer, we do pick up from Jay's Printer Supply. These come in a 500 milliliter bottle, and the brand is now going to be the iMagic ink. And we've had very good success with this. We've even been able to print directly onto acrylic without using any type of promoter. And Jay's will have special promotions and have the inks on sale from time to time as well. I will have a discount code linked down below. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop an image down below. This is the ink conversion kit that Jay sells. They are gonna have individual pieces, or like I said, you can take a look at this kit and piece together exactly what you need. Now, I don't want you to feel intimidated or think like this is something you can't handle. I'm gonna be honest, it looks like a lot of parts, and the next few steps might seem a little confusing or overwhelming. I'm gonna do my best to go into detail and over-explain like always, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you're gonna feel extremely confident you can walk through this process. It is gonna be very simple. This is what the stock replacement jug will look like. You will notice there are no holes drilled in the top. Our first step is going to be drilling 2 1/8-inch holes. Next up, you will notice these 2 90-degree fittings. Once we drill those holes, we're going to insert these 90-degree fittings. The first one is going to act as a vent or a breather. And once we get to the second 90-degree, we're going to put a small piece of hose on the bottom. And then that other piece of hose coming off the 90 is what will eventually run all the way up to our primary feed line. For right now, we are literally just gonna mimic one of the existing jugs to keep things simple. So let's get started, and just for clarification, this is still an empty container. Do not put your ink in this just yet. As explained earlier, our first order of operations is gonna be to drill those 2 1/8-inch holes at the front and the back of this container. Once those holes are drilled, I'm gonna remove this cap, and I'm gonna give this a good shake. I don't want any of that debris up inside of this plastic container. You know later on, once we put that fill hose in there, that's gonna suck up some sort of debris and clog your print nozzle. So really make sure that's nice and clean. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go use some compressed air and completely blow this out, and I highly recommend you do that as well. Now go ahead and take your remaining jugs and rinse and repeat. For me, I'm gonna do this to 3 more additional jugs. You can pick and choose how many additional jugs you need to convert over. Now that we have these containers nice and cleaned out, we're just taking this step by step, nice and slow, so you guys have a clear picture of what we're doing here. Next up, go ahead and find your little 90-degree elbows in the kit. We have 4 containers with 2 holes drilled in each container, so I'm gonna need a total of 8 of these items. On these little 90-degree attachments, you're gonna notice only one side has some ribbing on the bottom of it. You're gonna go ahead and insert those on the hole closest to the fill cap. This is only going to act as your vent tube. You do not need any additional lines or tubing on these. And just a quick note, I started out with an 1/8-inch drill bit, and that was not cutting the mustard. These were a little too tight. You want these to fit snug, but you don't want them to be too loose. We broke out the drill index, and I ended up going with a number 2 drill bit. Go ahead and take that empty jug, and you're gonna find the side with those little ribs, and you're gonna go ahead and place that in the hole closest to the fill spout. Give that a nice press. So now with that 90-degree insert, we're making our way closer to matching the pre-existing jugs. Let's work on the second hole. Moving right along, we're now going to use another 90-degree. However, this time we need to attach a piece of tubing on the bottom side prior to inserting it into these jugs. So now would be a great time to get your ink line separated. So since we have 4 jugs, I have 4 separate lines to feed up to the main line. Then we'll utilize a spare strip, and I'm going to show you what we do to modify these to get ready to insert into the canisters. This tubing is going to act as the feed or pickup line inside of your canister. You're really only going to need about 2 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start down here at the bottom, get yourself a really nice sharp pair of scissors, and you're really just going to want to cut this at a steep, anywhere from a 45 to about a 75-degree angle. You're just going to get that really nice sharp point on that. Off the top of my head, I think we need approximately 2 inches. I'm going to go ahead and slide this guy up to 3 inches just to give me a little extra room on this first one, and then we can adjust accordingly to the next. So that is all we're working with next. Here we are on the back side of the machine. Let's go ahead and take a look at the yellow canister. You're simply going to take something like a screwdriver, get that under the lip here of that little 90-degree fitting. Go ahead and pop that one out of your current color, and use a rag and wipe the excess color that comes off of it. And just go ahead and take a quick look and compare the size of that little tube, and you'll notice the size that we cut. It's a good thing we went at that 3 inches, because that's almost exactly what we need. So we're going to go ahead and cut 4 more of those. So now with all 4 lines cut, I've went ahead and done an example for you. You're going to take the remainder lines and you're going to go ahead and slip those up onto the barbed fitting that has those little ribs on the bottom side. And trust me, once you slip these up over that little barb, they're not going to come off. I would highly have a little cup of water and get those wet. So once again, just for reference, here's the new 90 with the barbs on the bottom, and this is the existing tubing in the yellow. We can now go ahead and take this fitting, and we're going to put this in the bottom of the canister. We want it to lay like this down in the bottom. You can kind of see how that's going to work. Go ahead and feed your tubing in, and just like the first 90 degrees, give that a good little press fit, and your tube should look just like this. You have your vent hole in the front with no tube, and this one is your pickup or feed line. We're now going to run our long extended line so that can go all the way up to the main pickup line, and that's where we're going to put the quick disconnects. So we are getting ready to make a small mess, so make sure you have plenty of rags on hand, and I'm going to keep it real with you. There is no way you're going to get this ink tubing off of this little 90 degree. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and cut that 90 degree, and we don't want that ink to spill all over the place. Inside of that kit, Jay's did provide us with this little line clamp. So what you're going to have to do is act very fast. We're going to clip that line, then we're going to quickly feed this clamp up on this hose, and then we're going to go ahead and click this down, which is going to apply pressure and clamp this tube so that the ink does not drip all over the place. So I've calculated I'm going to cut about 1.5 inches up. So here goes nothing. Let's go ahead and give that a quick clip with these cutters. Those sucked. We're going to use the scissors. Instead, I'm going to slip this little clamp over here, and we'll go ahead and activate that up top. Perfect. Go ahead and wipe up any excess that you may have spilled. You will notice that looks just like the lines we created. Now let's go ahead and modify this line and this line. Now we keep calling this a quick disconnect or a quick change ink conversion kit. This is the magical piece inside of the kit you're going to need next. This is the quick disconnect. A quick half turn, and this is going to separate, and this is threaded. So pay attention to this part. The smaller portion of the quick disconnect is always going to be pushed into the main intake feed line up here on your UV printer. The larger portion of the quick disconnect is always going to be connected to the line attached to your canister. So just a couple pointers and things to ponder while you're back here. Depending on what type of setup you're going to have back here for your jugs, that's going to dictate how long your tubing needs to be heading up to your main feed line. For the video today, I'm going to simply leave these jugs sitting right here on the table. I will eventually build out a shelf or some sort of 3D printed attachment that's going to go right here to the backside of our ZZ2C. I can always shorten these, so give yourself plenty of length. At this point in time, we are safe to take our long piece of tubing. Just again, verify you have enough to make it all the way up to the main feed lines. And the next step is we're going to go ahead and put that tubing onto that 90-degree attachment. Now inside of Jay's kit, you're going to find some of these tubing extensions. The reason these are included, you're going to notice these main intake lines get a little short, especially when you get over here to the red. This is going to be completely up to you. If you want to cut your lines add an extender in there, and then extend your lines out, you would then be able to do your quick disconnect without opening the back of this lid. Me personally, I don't want a bunch of this ink line dangling around the backside of this unit. So anytime I change out from soft to hard or my fluorescence, I don't mind opening this cover up. I want this to be nice and compact back inside of here. So again, that's going to be personal preference. One more time, on the quick disconnect, you're going to take the smaller portion and we're going to head up to that main feed line where we cut that, where we have our little crimping tool. We're going to go ahead and insert that inside of that main feed line. We now have our quick disconnect on the end of that line. Now me personally, I do not want to leave that line crimped. You're going to locate this little plug inside of the kit and you're going to go over to your quick disconnect, and this piece is simply going to insert right inside like so, and you're going to give it another half twist, and you've now plugged your main line, and you can now release this quick crimp tool. And so now your main feed line has a quick disconnect, and we also have that plug on it. So all the pieces of the puzzle should really start coming together. We've got our extended line on our pickup tube here. We've now got our quick disconnect here. We can go ahead and set this down here on the table. We're gonna go ahead and bring our line up here to the top, and you guessed it. We're gonna take the big portion, the larger portion of the quick disconnect, and that's gonna feed onto the end of this line here. And we would now be feeding our soft inks directly into the head. We would quick disconnect this line, connect this line right back to here, and we would now be feeding our hard inks back into it. So what I'm going to do right now is take the 3 remaining empty canisters and I'm going to run the extended tubing. I'm also going to take the fat end of that quick disconnect, plug into the end of each one of those. I'm then going to place those on the table underneath of our hard inks. Me personally, I want a little more room on the existing hard ink where I cut this. There is no way I'm going to get this off. So I'm simply going to take a razor blade, cut this piece off, and I'm going to probably cut a piece of tubing about 5 or 6 inches, and I'm going to install that quick disconnect on the end there, and then this job should be complete. Just a quick progress update. 1, 2, 3 for the CMY. We have the black over here as well. All 4 have the extended cables. You'll notice all 4 have these plugs on the end, the big fat ends for the quick disconnects. So you will notice these replacement containers are blank. If we leave the lid on this one black, we will know that's black. We need to go ahead and hit our cyan, magenta, and yellow. So go ahead and grab your little blue sticker and put that somewhere on your lid. Or I guess I could call it cyan. Go ahead and grab your yellow. So now we have all 3 marked. So we'll put the black here. And just like in kindergarten, you're going to play the color match game, yellow to yellow, cyan to cyan, magenta to magenta. I promised you guys, it seemed like a lot, but after seeing those pieces of the puzzle come together, drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Will you go through the effort of getting this all set up? It really wasn't that bad, and I promise you, this is going to be amazing when you want to switch between your hard and soft and even your fluorescents. Now go ahead and grab your bottles of iMagic ink. We're going to start off with the yellow. Go ahead and give that a really good shaking. Then you'll need to remove the cap and remove that air seal, and then we're going to go ahead and pour that into the canister. Okay, we now have all of the canisters filled up with the ink. We've ran our extended lines. We've put our quick disconnect fittings on the end of those lines. On the end of our main feed lines, we've got a quick disconnect. And we've also installed and lengthened the tubing on the existing canisters. Those have a quick disconnect with the twist-in plug. So right now, these are completely sealed and will not be leaking anywhere. The main feed lines do have a plug on it as well. So here's where the magic happens. We're now going to go ahead and start with our yellow. So we've got our yellow canister filled with soft ink. And again, this one is filled with hard ink. We're simply going to take our quick disconnect line, come up here to the quick disconnect on the main feed line, remove that plug, and we're now going to take and feed this into that fitting, give it a half twist. We now have the soft ink line feeding up into the print head. Now remember, from this point forward, we still have that hard ink. We're going to go ahead and repeat that process for the remaining colors. Then we're going to jump into our Print EXP software, and we're going to go ahead and load this soft ink into that print head and purge that old ink into our waste container, and we're going to be ready to do some test prints. So again, I'm really just going the extra mile here to help anybody out that wants to know how to do this and making sure everybody really sees this. So these are the quick disconnects completely assembled. This is the old hard line with the plug in it. So as you can see, that's a really nice clean setup. No, the ZZ2C did not magically just change to a ZZ1S. We actually went ahead and removed that cover for two reasons. I'm going to need to be able to jog this print head out and make sure that when we purge the ink or load the ink that it actually filled up. Number two, I want to be able to access and check on that backside and make sure none of those quick disconnect fittings are leaking, or any of the other fittings that I put on those new ink lines have any cracks or leaks as well. I don't want to put this thing all back together and then be chasing a random leak. Now, since we were already running a clear varnish in print head number 2, we're going to jump inside of Print EXP, and I have a full tutorial on this down below in case you have not ran ink through your print heads before. If you're familiar with this, jump inside of Print EXP, go to your settings, and we're only going to choose print head 1. We're going to run that for 30 seconds, then we're going to go ahead and hit stop. We're going to wait 10 seconds, then we're going to go ahead and load that ink for 5 more seconds, then we're going to go ahead and hit stop. Then we're going to go ahead and jog that print head over and make sure that that did fill up with ink. Then we're going to run this thing back over, do a print head clean, run a nozzle check. Most likely we'll have to run a color flag, and hopefully by then we will have all of our soft inks loaded up and we'll be able to run some test prints. I went ahead and went through the ink loading process off camera, and I'm glad I spared you that. I ran into a few challenges and I wanted to go ahead and share those with you. So if you go through this conversion kit, you'll know exactly what to do if you encounter that same problem. Inside of my Print EXP software, I went ahead and ran that first inking. That is normally enough time to draw enough ink up into those print heads. However, after I did that first inking and I ran a test flag, I realized I had absolutely no ink. I had to go back in and pull ink through for about 60 seconds 2 more times. And of course, I was sitting there thinking, oh no, I got myself in deep doo-doo. This thing is not drawing up enough ink into those dampeners. So here's what I would personally recommend. I went ahead and ran these really long tubes. I personally, when going through and setting this up, if I was to redo this, I would go ahead and spend the time and trim these tubes up and get them as short as possible. At the end of the day, the longer that tube is, this is a closed loop system, and when you're trying to draw or suck that ink up into those print heads, it is having to pull that ink all the way through these long extension tubes. I know for a fact that if I had shortened these tubes up, I wouldn't have had to go through that inking process for so long to get that ink all the way up into those print heads. At the end of the day, we have our soft ink up in those print heads, but the positive side is it's good to know that even with these really long tubes ran, this ZZ2C still had enough juice to pull that ink all the way up into those print heads. Now let's go ahead and jump over to the front side of this printer and run some test prints on some Leatherette. So now that we have our UV printer loaded up with the soft ink and our quick connect system all set up, let's go ahead and do a print on some of this Lonestar Leatherette. For this test, we're going to use their rawhide to black color. And just in case you don't know what Leatherette is, this is a faux leather and it has a thermal adhesive on the back side of it. You will typically see people laser engraving this, but right now all the rage is UV printing directly onto this material. You'll use a print cut feature over on a CO2 laser engraver, and you can do an offset cut, and you're going to see people pressing those full color custom hat patches, and that's how you're going to complete that. You're going to need yourself a UV printer like this ZZ2C, and of course you're going to need the best Leatherette in the game. That's Lonestar, Leatherette, and an adhesive, and of course I'll have a link to that down below where you can save some money if you use my discount code, of course. So once again, if you have no desire to print on things that are flexible and soft like this, don't even worry about picking up some soft ink. If you're going to print on hard materials like this sign blank right here, you can go ahead and stick with your hard inks, but just know that in the future, you can always convert between hard and soft. Now, quick disclaimer before we print on this Lonestar Leatherette, the entire point of this video was to walk you through the entire process of getting your UV printer set up with Jay's Quick Connect ink system. I think we've accomplished that. You guys should be feeling very confident that if you want to use those Quick Connect systems on the back side of this printer, that's not going to be a problem. Just take your time and make sure you spend the proper time loading that ink up in there. And like anything in life, if you get a new machine or a new material, you're gonna have to go through those steps to figure out your settings. On a laser engraver, we would do a material test card. I've printed on things like this wood that you see right here, and in my past videos, you've seen me print on UV transfers and decals. This is gonna be no different than that. I'm gonna pick some baseline settings, I'm gonna print on that, I'm gonna use my eyeballs, and I'm gonna figure out what adjustments I need to make. But for the point of this video, I'm gonna print a color flag really quick. Let's take a look at how that turned out. Then we'll throw a design on here and we're gonna print that. Then we're going to show you what the entire purpose of switching over to the soft inks is, and that's showing you that this item can fold and crease and be malleable without cracking or breaking that ink. Now, one thing I love about the ZZ2C is the small footprint. The Lonestar Leatherette comes in sheets 12 by 24, and you guys already know the work bed on this is 13.5 by 23.5. All we're going to do is bring this right up here to the front edge, and this has a vacuum table. Go ahead and press that button right here on the front, and that vacuum table comes in clutch. Look how flat that keeps this leatherette down on that table. Let's go ahead and feed the table under that print head. Let's go ahead and raise it up now. This has an automatic Z height. Once that machine automatically bottoms out, back it off one click. We are now in focus, and we verified that our UV light is on. So guys, this is finishing up in real time. This is coming right off of the printer. Let me turn the vacuum table off. And take a look at that. Dry to the touch. I can actually touch this, and here's the best part. Again, this leatherette, very flexible, right? We can fold and bend this ink, and it's not gonna crack. That is absolutely incredible. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I am clearly extremely excited. I would say that this was a very successful project. Clearly, I've got some settings I could dial in. Right now, I want to go ahead and load up another design and get that printed up and just take a quick look at how that went. So I want to really show you how flexible and durable this is. We're not playing games. We're not trying to manipulate this. We're twisting, wrinkling, folding, and tacoing this. And this is extremely pliable, looks fantastic, and there is no breaking or cracking at all. So this is soft ink on Lonestar Leatherette. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been quite the journey, but if you are interested in purchasing a UV printer, I truly hope you gain some good value out of this video and you know what to look for. If you already have a UV printer, hopefully you learned something today. I have actually found a lot of people didn't know that you can convert these to soft or hard inks. So I find it really fascinating that one of the budget-friendly UV printers on the market has a really neat feature like that. That works out really good for somebody like me that runs something like a job shop where I'm working on a wide variety of items. I really don't want to be locked into either a hard or soft ink. So once again, big thank you to the team over there at Jay's Printer Parts for sending out that quick disconnect kit. That really did make converting between hard and soft inks very easy. I know it was intimidating at first, but trust me, if you guys follow along with my video, it was a very simple process. Quite frankly, the most stressful part was just loading that ink up. Again, I had to run it for about 1:30 and really feed that ink through. So don't give up. Just make sure you get that ink up into those print heads. Now let's go ahead and save you some money really quick. We are an official affiliate for Jay's Printer Parts. If you use our discount code RISENGRIND, that's going to save you some money at checkout, and you can use that same discount code at Lonestar, Leatherette, and at Adhesive. That's going to save you 10% off of your order as well, and we exclusively work with Lonestar. And speaking of Lonestar, some of the future projects that we have coming up, now that we have the machine loaded up with this soft ink, we're going to do an ultimate leatherette tutorial. And again, we're going to show you how to do the print cut feature and get your settings dialed in for UV printing on the Lonestar Leatherette. You can also pick up these flasks that are wrapped in leatherette. We're going to experiment and do some UV printing with that soft ink directly onto this leatherette instead of laser engraving. We also picked up some of these can dusters from Lonestar Leatherette, and we're going to do some direct UV printing on these as well. So if you guys don't want to miss projects like that, now might be a great time to make sure you not only are subscribed, but you hit that bell notification. We've been cranking out content about once a week, and right now I'm going to encourage you to drop a comment below. At the end of the day, I really am making content for you guys. I don't like to sit around and watch my own content, but I also want to thank each and every one of you that made it this far into the video. I really am blessed to do what I do here at the Rise and Grind workshop, and a big part of that is thanks to you guys commenting and following and helping support the channel. So again, we'll catch you guys on the next video.